And now for something completely different, off the cuff, for episode 22, here with Mercy and the Manz. We are en route to a gig this weekend, and I was looking at the calendar and thought this was really the only time that we were going to be able to sit and talk and debrief and all that good stuff. So this might be interesting. This might not be very long of an episode, but it's going to happen.
I mostly want to make sure that we don't accidentally capture me like getting into a car accident.
That's right. You're not looking at the camera. I'm not really looking at the camera either.
But with these dark shades, could you tell if I was or wasn't? Anyway?
No. But also, this is pretty much a good, this is how we do it. This is how we do it. That was too easy. I don't know what I'm doing either. Let's be lost, we'll be lost together. I don't know what I'm doing either. Let's be lost, we'll be lost. This is generally what we do when we're on our way to gigs. We're talking about the gig coming up, we're talking about songs, and I thought this would just be a good time to, one, debrief our travel that we just did in Tucson. Two, I think it would be fun to talk about our kicking off into gig season and the work you had to do to get prepared for this gig. We're adding 2 songs. So yeah. Should we start with Tucson?
Sure. I can't really host because my brain is this way.
Don't host.
Yeah.
You're just talking. So we just got back from Tucson. We were there with Rock and Roll Team Building. It was pretty quick. Beautiful hotel resort we were at. We were at the Westin
La Paloma.
Yeah. Right.
Last time we were there, you and I were actually there together many, many years ago when we played an event there where we were backing up some stars like Coolio. I think Steve Harwell might have been there. And Bret Michaels? Maybe Mark McGrath? I can't remember. It's definitely Coolio.
Definitely Coolio. Funky Cole Medina.
Oh, Tone Loc?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Hip hop, the hip to the
Sugar Hill Gang?
Yes. I can't remember anybody's names.
They were on that one too?
I believe so. I don't think it was the Rockers.
They all kind of blend together because we also did something in Scottsdale around that time.
Now, see, that's the one I remember. But anyway,
but Scottsdale was that club.
That's a good one to actually talk about, that gig. But going to Tucson, we were there with Rock and Roll Team Building. It was a little bit different than what we've been doing as far as we didn't do the big keynote. But actually, I'm going to pull a card because that can lead into what we did in Tucson. So remember, I brought up soundtrack stories in the last episode. Nick, our fearless, amazing leader.
Nicole
White.
Nicole White.
That's
a terrible Australian
It's
accent.
horrible. But anyway, soundtrack stories and what we had the group do in Tucson when they got there. It was the first day of their summit. Is we had these cards laid out on the table, and they had 10-15 minutes to discuss amongst themselves as they pulled a card, and then we got into our spiel. So I'm going to just pick a random card. I'm not going to look.
Pick a card.
Pick a card. Is there a song that reminds you of a crush or first love?
Crush or first love? As embarrassing as it is to say, I have a vivid memory of, remember that song by that band Lifehouse, Falling Even More in Love with You? Falling even more in love with you. I remember I was sort of dating this girl just after high school, or just right, I guess, no, I was in high school, I don't remember. I'd have been my senior year. But I didn't know how to date anybody. I hadn't even kissed anybody yet. I was very intimidated by the whole thing. But I had all these feelings that I didn't really know what to do with them. And I remember driving along and hearing that song and kind of being yeah, this song reminds me of you, which I think probably freaked her out, and also was a little weird. But yeah, that song. Whenever I think of like a first crush kind of song, even though she was not my first crush, like in my life, but like that song.
But it was your first like girlfriend?
Yeah, yeah, I would say so. Although, you know, like I said, I didn't really know what I was doing, so I kind of blew it. But
That's beside the point.
yeah. But that song, I remember that song being very like I was driving. So I had this independence. You know, I'm like driving through like downtown Pleasanton or whatever, and that song's on, and you know, so yeah. No, I don't know why we'd be embarrassed by that song. I actually think that's a great song. A very very catchy song.
I knew it after you started singing it, but I didn't know it by the title. For me, it's kind of a twofold. I had a crush on this boy in 8th grade who got me in so much trouble. I was in way over my head, even back in 8th grade. Now, I definitely had my first kiss way before you did in that regard. And like I said, it was 8th grade, and it was also the last dance of our 8th grade graduation, and I was pretty sure I wasn't going to see him anymore because we weren't going to go to the same high school and we didn't live in the same area. So, and I'm so embarrassed. Like, I'm embarrassed that I had a crush on this kid, but that notwithstanding, it was Boys to Men, End of the Road.
I mean, that song, like between middle school and high school dances, like that song was like never went away.
No. So like I remember what I was wearing. We were all horribly sunburned because we had our 8th grade promotion that day, and we were dropping like flies. We had no shade. We were outside. It was like 90 degrees in the hot blazing sun. We all had like heat stroke, and we were all burnt to a crisp.
Jeez.
And I wasn't even allowed by this point to talk to this boy anymore, but somehow I and my mom was chaperoning the 8th grade dance.
Of course she
was.
was.
Of course. But somehow my friends finagled. I think someone distracted my mom. Honestly, it was a whole thing. It was a whole.
It's like a TV sitcom.
It was a very TV sitcom thing.
The TGIF plot.
Yeah, and I got to dance the last dance with him, and it was Boys to Men, End of the Road, and it was just, you know, all the feelings. I thought I was gonna, you know, love him forever, and I was heartbroken that I wasn't probably gonna see him again after that. So that's my story.
I find it funny, like just thinking about this while you were talking about that, like you know, they say like youth is wasted on the young. And I always kind of feel like that's such a cliche. I mean, it's definitely a cliche. It's literally a cliche. But I do think back to some of that stuff, and I feel like those like big, like overwhelming feelings, those just everything being so amplified, those big feelings, you know, and everything's like the end of the world and it's so important, this and that, whatever. And it's like sometimes I go like, oh, I have a hard time accessing those feelings now as a 43-year-old adult, you know? It's just like things aren't as like as big or as wide as they were back then, you know, the highs and the lows.
Yeah.
And I mean, I do kind of feel like that's wasted on the young because they don't really know kind of what's important, but at the same time, like I'm jealous of my past self. I'm jealous of youth in that way, of like being able to like feel that sort of like full range of feelings. And somebody's going to be listening to this and going like, no, that's just you, dude. You're actually depressed. But I just remember like being so excited about things or so sad about things or so passionate. And it's like, you know, you just, as you age, you just take on different responsibilities and different things come into your life and priorities change and all that kind of stuff. And it's just funny to think back to something like that, to be like, you know, well, I'm driving along and I'm thinking about this girl and I'm just like, it's coming out of my chest, you know, and like you're dancing with this boy at the end of the 8th grade dance and you're just like, you know, it's like that's what a great part of like growing up, what a great part of life.
But I hear what you're saying, but I don't think that you can't. I think we're better. We get more like where we compartmentalize and we kind of shut things off. But I don't think that it's not possible for you to have those feelings now. I think maybe you just have to unlock some things or allow yourself access to them. But I don't think all is lost. I think you can.
No, I don't mean to be fatalist about it. I think I was just, I mean, it's no secret that we both do therapy, and funny, this kind of came up in therapy for me on Tuesday, the Thursday. Day is it?
Yesterday.
Kind of along those lines, like thinking about, I kind of spoke to this a little bit. I'm like, I feel like, and part of it's we've been doing stuff, right? We've had the rock and roll team building, which we've talked about a bunch on this podcast. And we've been working on some other projects and things that we'll hopefully be able to like speak a little bit more specifically about soon. But we've had a fairly, like maybe the slowest beginning of the year that we've ever had in this band, non-COVID division. And I think it's like put me in a place where like, I've been talking about the struggle I've had with like getting back into like a positive routine, like getting exercise back into my life, like getting down to my drum room to play drums at least once a week and kind of keep that rust off. And just like, I'm wondering sometimes, I think like the universe is sort of challenging me to reshuffle my priorities and really be sort of critical about like what I want to focus on, like what I want to really have in my life, what I really want to be doing, and like try to access some of that passion that you're talking about. I agree with you. I don't want to be fatalistic about it. Like you're just beat down as an adult. You can't feel that like youthful exuberance and whatever optimism or like. But I think it does become like incumbent on us as adults with like all these added responsibilities. I mean, we have a kid in our life, right? We run a business that has a bunch of different, angles to it and everything, and you have to like shuffle that stuff around those responsibilities in a way that I think like for a lot of people, not obviously some kids have way too much responsibility just due to environmental factors or familial stuff or whatever. But when you're in your late teens, 20s, whatever, it's like you don't have as much stuff kind of piled on.
Right.
So it's easier, I think, to be like, I'm gonna hop on a plane and go to Bali just because, it's like, how many things have to line up for us to go to like, to get on a plane to leave the country, like let alone to go to like the other side of this country.
Yeah. No, I know it. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Well, so perfect example of what we're hoping to bring into these areas of the corporate world when we go and do rock and roll team building. So, we do these keynote portions that Kieran does really well, and then we're in the house band and we do stings and we do the private party, maybe opening night or closing night or whatever. But we brought this part in, and for me being who I am, I love it because I've really come to understand that I really crave connection with people, but not just on a superficial level. I despise small talk. I want to know your hopes and your fears and I want to know like your deep dark stuff. I want to know the messy and the good, and that helps me feel close to people, and I love it. So this was one of the first times that I got to see it in play, and it's always interesting because it is a corporate environment, and you have these people that are dropped in that know each other, have known each other for years, maybe possibly even decades. They're all at different levels within the company, and it's a way for them to share and connect and be vulnerable, but in the space of music still. And there's so much to me it makes it a little easy because music is a lot to a lot of people, And there was a quote, and I'm going to get it wrong. It's one that they throw up on the slide. I guess David Grohl said it, that you can play a song to 80,000 people, and they will give you.
They'll sing it back to you.
They'll sing it back to you with 80,000 different feelings, reasons, something like that. Yeah. See, you got it better than me. I promise I pay attention, but I think it's easier than doing, like, we're gonna do team building, we're gonna talk about feelings, and like, name your deepest, darkest fear. Like, I think that's hard. So I think it's genius that Nicole did it in the space of doing it about songs and bringing songs and music into it, because it's a little bit easier to have a springboard that way. And I don't feel it's as scary for people to talk about songs and music. That being said, it's still hard because people get shy. People worry, I think, about judgment from others. And, after they do this 15 minutes of talking at the table, then we go out in the crowd and we try to get people to, like, speak, into the mic about it to the whole room. And sometimes it's like pulling freaking teeth. My first time I did it was a really quick version of it, and that was at Houston at that one gig. And I didn't quite have a handle on it and really know how to do it. I think this most recent time, I kind of went in with more of questions that I wanted to ask, so I felt more prepared. It helped that some people were a little bit more willing to answer the questions and do it, but I also kind of didn't give as much space for them to opt out either. So I kind of like got in there. I was a little bit more prepared with having somebody on deck and kind of having a backstory before I just randomly picked somebody, so I wasn't left hanging, with my in the wind. So that went well. And then we played a 90-minute set, and was most of the usual suspects. It was Kyle on drums, Mike on bass, Mike Shiono, Jeff on guitar. I was one of the only additional singers this time, and we had Manny on keys because Wendy was out. She's been out of town, but I know Manny has done it before in the past. And it was a pretty easy gig, all things considered, because there wasn't a crazy early morning. The early mornings kill me. Like, I'll do them, and I feel I do them good enough, but it's so much better when it's at night. I still have to get my stamina back because, like Kyle said, we've been off for a little over a month, and I was like, oh, I got to get my muscle memory back with singing a 90-minute set. I don't know that I would have been able to do another 90-minute set.
Well, you're going to get a crash course today, this gig.
Well, this one isn't. Well, here's what we got working against us. Smoke. It's a casino gig. We do Cache Creek about twice a year. I used to be really like resistant to doing it. Now it's kind of fun to work out some songs. Case in point, like I said, we added a couple songs, which is such another thing that's hard. I realized that running a band the way we do, we don't rehearse regularly. We often will add a song. Kyle puts it together or arranges it. We have a backing track if needed. And not all things are on the track. In case people are wondering, we actually do and can play all the songs without the track, but there's a lot of production stuff that I feel just you need a track. Even the artists play with tracks.
So many things can be explained, criticisms people might have about, cover bands or dance band, whatever, and of course, like, it's a dangerous idea to dip your toe into, like, going on, like, Threads, which is like the Instagram, social media, like Twitter kind of ripoff, Blue Sky ripoff, that I don't think anybody really needed, but now exists.
Right.
And it took me a while to realize that, like, everything on there, almost everything, unless it's posted by somebody that you actually know, um, all the stuff that gets fed to you is just rage baiting, engagement farming, like BS. And my algorithm is always serving up hot takes about backing tracks and about drummers and whatever, because
Right.
like I guess my phone listens to me and knows what I talk about. But so many things that can be explained by the sheer number of songs that we have to perform in any given show or week or year or whatever.
Right.
And like the spanning of genres and decades and artists and whatever, like, there's some stuff that just it needs it needs, like, those artists are touring with huge bands, or they got stuff on tracks. So quite frankly, like, I've done a number of gigs with bands that don't really run tracks, and you play those, like you play a song like Uptown Funk, and it's like, this doesn't sound like it sounds weak to me.
Right.
So to me, I'm like, well, whatever. Like, I'm not ashamed of running tracks,
Yeah.
Just like I'm not ashamed of, like, if we got to drop something a half step or whatever we got to do, it's like there's things that I'm down to a certain point, right? But like,
I mean, that's my biggest rant all the time is that people don't do songs in their keys, and I personally don't think it matters what key. Like, if you want to sing a song, like, just lower the key. Like, I don't care. I don't think there should be a rule. I know there's some people that are like, if you're lowering more than 2 steps, you shouldn't be doing it. I don't even agree with that. I think that just means that somebody in your band can't play it.
I think the rules are different when you own and run your own band. But also, there's a difference, right? If you're looking at the set list, like when we send our songs out, especially to subs, like, I can look down the list and be like, okay, like, it's this many songs that are different keys or whatever, and a lot of them are just moving from like a flat key or whatever, or sharp key to like a more natural key.
Mm-hmm.
But it's reasonable to be like, hey, these are the songs you've got to like think about being played in a different key or whatever. But like, I've done some gigs with singers where they send the song list out or whatever, and every single song is in a different key. And it's like, okay, so Don't Stop Believing is now in D instead of E, and we're doing Bright Side in this key. And it's just like, at a certain point, it's like every single song's in a different key. That's just a logistical challenge to have, the band, like, it's to transpose every single song like that, if you can't just hit a button on your keyboard, or you're not playing a guitar thing or whatever.
I get what that, but I don't agree. I think if you're going to take a gig and you say that you are a pro working musician, if you can't play in all the keys, then you are in the wrong business. And if you can't like throw a capo on and figure it out, or you can't just like do it, then do something else, because then be a weekend warrior and do the band that you want to do and do it in all the original keys, because that's the only way you know how to play. Otherwise, like, I mean, that's my opinion. And like I said, I always have strong ones. That being said, tonight, what I was going to say about adding songs is being in a band that we are. And, we talk about it that we, once we get going, there's no dead space. There's no like talking between songs and telling a story, or, oh, what are we going to do? And like, we're pretty fast paced and everything. I find it hard to add songs to our set because we know what works and we know what's a home run. And there's that thing of like, do we need to add, if we add more songs to the set, do we have to add what is hot and current now? Or do we add more 80s or more 90s or, EDM, or, and it becomes this thing of like, you get so many song ideas, but then you're like, well, if I add that many songs, then we're completely changing the set list, which isn't a bad thing, but like, where should we put the focus on what we add? And I've been, I shot myself in the foot one time thinking we were being super clever, and I always felt like people had to jump on us of adding new songs and the most current to the set list. And so there was this one time we were doing a gig, and I was like, we were absolutely doing Ariana Grande's Thank You Next. Wait, no, it wasn't Thank You Next.
It was Yes and.
Yes and it came out, and it was exact. I'm like, we can mash it with Vogue. It's perfect. 2 days away from doing a club date. Perfect time to add it. We're gonna add it, and it's gonna be great, and all this stuff. It bombed. It totally bombed, and it was because it was so new. People hadn't even really heard it yet. And
Yeah.
we started the song, and it like cleared the dance floor, and that song never totally really took off the way I expected it to. Like, we did it a couple times, a couple people requested it, but it was just one of those songs that just fizzled, and it's like, well, maybe we should just do Vogue, which again is like, Vogue is from the 90s, but like, are we better off just adding Vogue and not worrying about the new one that sounds exactly like it? And this weekend, so Bruno Mars just dropped his new album, and I haven't heard the entire record yet, but I heard it's killer. And I heard that it's very much, which I'm excited because I did hear another song. It's very influenced by mariachis in LA. And, but the one song that we heard, that was the new single, was I Just Might. And I was like, right away, we have to add that song. So Kyle is always in need, we feel, of more songs. So he's going to do that one. And so we're doing it tonight for the first time. And then you requested that I do Man Child, Sabrina Carpenter, which was not the song I would think that you would like say we should do. And I'm totally all for it. We dropped it a step and a half for me.
Yeah.
A step and a half. I can sing it along with her, but I did feel like if I'm going to be on in-ears, it would probably be okay, but it's just definitely one of those like airy songs. And I was like, even singing it a step and a half down and doing the breaks in my voice, going from chest voice to head voice, which is kind of like, how would I, kind of like, well, I guess I could do it, you say. So I started in chest voice, go up into my falsetto, you say. That's what a break is, in the most broken down, lame version of that. But I will still sound high in my register as she does doing it a step and a half up. So I felt good about dropping it so I can feel comfortable and confident doing the chest voice parts, because I didn't want to be at the top of my range and straining, and nobody needs to hear me warbling in a key that's too high for me. So,
and to be fair, I dropped the Bruno tune a half step because, again, it's that difference between really like kind of straining to hit the highest notes and have it kind of feel pinched and thin, and being able to like kind of more comfortably still at the top of my range parts of the song, but it does allow me to like not have to like squeak it out. And then it also gives me a little bit of play to, because Bruno's singing all kinds of licks and runs, which I may not be doing all of them, but I want to be able to kind of do it the way that I want to do it. And I need to have like, full range or full capacity of my...
Well, you literally got to do it with your chest, right? And so you got to do it in what feels good for you. I went through and was listening to a bunch of live performances that Sabrina Carpenter did, Man Child, and she sings it like she does show up and sing live, which is really like, I really appreciate that. But you can definitely see where she dips out, and you can see where she made different musical choices for the notes, because y'all, it's hard. Like, people take it for granted. Like, these songs that are heavily produced, or especially like breathy type singing, is not easy live, because you get buried. And I mean, it's different for those artists that have like, all the technical stuff at your disposal, and you have, 5 people running in front of a house and you've got, your own monitor person and everything like that. But like, it's still hard to like get out in front of that stuff. And the type of shows that we're going to be doing, I just didn't want to have to be worrying about that. And I'm also not making an excuse for having to lower the key, because I don't think that that's...
Well, a lot of these artists too, they record these songs in the highest key they can get away with, and then when they go out live, they lower them.
Yeah.
I mean, some artists, like when you listen to their live stuff, you listen to different shows, and there'll be 3-4 different keys that they're working with, depending on how they're, and they got that kind of run through their like backing tracks or whatever, but they're dropping keys.
Yep.
And then a lot of them also, they got these big bands, but the big bands are full of background singers.
Yep.
So, they got 3-4 background singers that are coming in and singing every single, hook or whatever. And then they'll jump in and out, or they'll sing the ad lib or whatever, but they're not out there covering everything on their own anyway.
No,
so,
there's even like some of the vocals on track. You can hear it even with background singers, and most of the there's always one of those background singers that's doubling the lead vocal as well, and like that's just the way it is, and it happens, and you see it all the time. Go watch live performances on YouTube of Beyonce, of the gal Ray, even, that does baby, where's my husband? I mean, she's great. They're great singers, but you can't do all the parts. You just can't do them all live. And then going back to the key changes, I've gone through live performances of Seal doing Kiss from a Rose. I have found at least 4 different keys that he's done it in live. If you just go like performance to performance, it's different keys. And then Chapel Roan has like very, very boldly stated that she doesn't sing her songs in the original keys or the album keys. She said, all the power to the people that have covered my songs and do them in the original key. Even I don't. She said that, like Pink Pony Club, she lowers because it's usually at the end of her set. And she's like, after I've sung an entire set of music, I can't sing Pink Pony Club in the original key. Like, I'm tired. I've been singing already for an hour or whatever. And I'm like, thank you for like just being honest and forthcoming with that, because we're us cover band singers out here are expected to do everything that the real artists can't even do.
Right.
So we got this gig, which kind of like officially kicks off. Like, I mean, now from here on out, we're pretty much booked every weekend.
You still got a couple holes here and there if people are looking for bands, but we're looking okay this year for sure.
But we've got lots of travel with rock and roll team building, and that's kind of been a little, like, I wouldn't admit it, it's been a little stressful for me just because I've got mom guilt. I mean, Kyle bringing up the previous time that we went to Tucson and Scottsdale years ago, was my first time away from Roxy, and I was 7 weeks postpartum, and nobody thought I would do the gig because of that reason. And I was ready to get back to work. I suffered from postpartum depression, but part of it was just like I needed to get back to like what I do and get back to myself. And everybody was like, oh, you must be having such a hard time being away from your kid. No, I didn't. I was so happy to be gone and be away. And it was 24 hours. And physically, it was the hardest 24 hours I've ever been away from my child in the physical sense. It's harder for me now to be away from my child. I get horrible mom guilt. I get anxiety of traveling away from her, but back then it was just like, oh my God, get me out of here. But a couple things that happened on that gig and I've wanted to speak to is, I didn't have a lot of models for women that I knew that were singing and doing what I do at that level.
Right.
If that makes sense. And so I wasn't prepared for what was going to happen. I wasn't prepared for the mind F that was going to come with trying to squeeze back into costumes that felt too snug on a postpartum body. We did a 2-hour set, no break. I leaked everywhere. I was exclusively breastfeeding. I leaked everywhere. Thank God you couldn't see it through my clothes. I got horrendously engorged because I'd never pumped before and I didn't know how and I couldn't. And so I was rock hard and thought I was going to have to go to the ER. I didn't sleep at all because I literally sat on the shower floor and cried for 3 hours because I was in so much pain and thought I was going to die. I also peed myself on that gig because, again, hadn't moved like that since having a baby, and I pushed a 9-pound baby out and went to jump to do a dance, and that all happened. So all these good things that come with, and I wanted to talk about on I wish somebody had told me all these things and told me what to think about, but also just someone hug me and tell me that it was all okay and that I didn't have to be there that early. But even if I did decide to be there that early on in my postpartum journey, that I could have just given myself some grace.
It's hard.
Come out of the gate like that. But
you've always held yourself to a really high standard, and I think one of the last podcasts, you talked about like the spirit, like the competitive spirit being put into you at such a young age. I think that the holding yourself to a high standard, I think it's a double-edged sword, because I think your competitive spirit and your high standard and all that have gotten you to a level and a skill level and all that makes you one of the best at what you do. But it also makes moments like that very difficult, where you always feel like you should just be able to persevere or get through stuff or do better or whatever. And it's like, sometimes that's just not realistic.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but it is something I want to, like, some of the stories I have from performing back then and stuff, just like that I wish and I hope no woman goes through anymore. But there was I remember I got so upset when everybody made such a big deal when Rihanna did the Super Bowl performance pregnant.
Yeah.
And I was like, so what? She didn't even do anything. She was only performing for 9 minutes. I went and did this show for 2 hours and big whoop-de-doo, Rihanna, and she had a whole entourage and all this stuff, and it was like, big deal. That's a walk in the park. But again, my competitive streak and not being like, yes, great for her, I know how hard it is. I usually get there. I do want to say that somehow the way my process is that I get super competitive and I can hate on people, but like the second it's like any feeling. And actually, let's go back to the feeling stuff. As long as you acknowledge it and it gets acknowledged and it gets validated, then it just poof goes. It's like I need to work through it. And the problem is, like, people don't usually reward you for being honest and open about the shitty feelings. People don't reward you for being honest about feeling jealous. People don't reward you for feeling honest about, having the ugly feelings. You're immediately judged, or you're immediately like put in this, like, you're a bad person or that's bad. But like, it's a process for me. And a lot of times I can be like, that person, it happened recently with a singer. Like there, and maybe there's a little bit of like feeling like somebody needs to just acknowledge me and respect me and like kind of kiss the ring, so to speak. But once I'm seen, then I'm okay. It's like with this one singer that I used to kind of like shit talk, and then the second that like we actually talked in person, and then the next thing you know, I'm like, oh, by the way, I invited her to sing with us, and we chat all the time, and I commiserate with her, and I like her a lot, and she like blah 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 blah. But it's like, it's just my process, and
It's also funny that you married a man who comes at that stuff from the exact opposite
I know.
approach.
What's your approach? Tell your approach.
My approach is I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. I am open-minded and like everybody until they give me a reason not to. That being said, I make judgments very quickly, and I'm usually not wrong. But
Right.
I just
Well, I go.
I'm a Libra. I'm collaborative. There's just things about the way that I approach people that I have to. I can't. It's hard for me. I mean, if we've talked about this. I can't live in the competitive kind of the way that your mind, the way you process feelings or the way that you process situations. Like, I can't live in that. Like, it's very difficult for me to have those feelings or to deal with those feelings.
Yeah. Well, like I said, you're the diplomatic one, and yes, you are a Libra through and through. Does anybody wonder? Is it any wonder? I'm a Leo. Like, that should tell you all that you need to know. And that being said, I do give people the benefit of the doubt, but like, man, again, and what's really nice is, and I want to keep talking about the feeling side of this industry and what we do, is the last episode that we did, there were so many people that reached out. So many people that reached out and said how much they appreciated that we talked about that it was refreshing that I spoke about it the way I did, about my experiences, because it resonated with a lot of people, and people don't talk about it. People always want to look like the hero of the story. I'm not worried to not always look like the hero. What you see is what you get, and I like to be forthcoming and vulnerable, and it wasn't always that way. You were part of my big aha moment of being open and vulnerable and not feeling like it was going to be the end of me. But what was I going to go? How was I going to go with that? I got distracted by the car that pulled right in front of me.
Apparently their blinker is broken.
Yeah, I got a little distracted, and I was trying to press on the brake, even though he is one of the best, if not the best driver that I've ever been around. But yeah, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. What I was trying to do was give you your flowers.
These are the risks of doing a live podcast.
It's fine. I was trying to give you your flowers of that. I've given you so much credit of my being willing to be open and vulnerable, because you have rewarded me for that. And it's something, again, that I wasn't modeled or given space in the past.
Yeah, but on the flip side, you've helped me to name feelings and to speak to that, because that's hard to do. It's hard to name. I don't remember if we were talking about it on the podcast or if we were just talking about it in person, in real life, in the real world. But like the really convenient feelings, anger being the really big one, right? That like there's these convenient bigger feelings that can mask all this other stuff. Like, it's way easier to say I'm angry, or I'm whatever. I have to think of other examples, but then it's easier to say that than to say that I'm feeling jealousy, or that I'm feeling overlooked, or I'm feeling abandoned, or like whatever. Like, those are much scarier, harder emotions to speak to than anger, or anger is the one I come to the most, because I think that's the quickest one. But there's other people that are wired not to get angry. They're wired to get like really just sad or aggrieved in a way, right?
Right.
Instead of being like, hey, I guess it's more like it's like the looking at the symptom rather than the cause, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
I'm angry. You made me angry. It's like, well, okay, is it really anger you're feeling? Because that's fine if it is. It's not like you can never be angry. But it's like, even if you're feeling anger, it's like, because why?
Right.
Because you feel overlooked, or you feel whatever, like whatever it might be. That's not how most people are really like raised or wired or whatever. And that has been something that you've helped me with a lot, to be able to say, yeah, no, I am feeling jealous, or I'm feeling whatever.
I've been better about my jealousy, I feel.
I think so. Yeah.
It hasn't really been tested lately, so that means you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
It means I'm doing a good job. All right, so kind of going back to, I just thought it would be fun to kind of talk about how we prep for learning new songs. I'm kind of going to flip it and reverse it, going back to the songs, just because we're getting closer to the venue. Like I said, we're learning Man-Child, and I Just Might. And for me, luckily, there's not a whole lot of words in this song. And what I'm hoping to not even use cheater lyrics, because I don't need lyrics for anything else in this set. Did you load lyrics for you?
I did.
And he has an easier way of kind of hiding it, because when he does new songs, he can stay behind the percussion rig and
Sometimes
read lyrics, and it kind of ticks me off because I can't do that when I'm learning a song. And look, I am all for not having an iPad on stage. I don't like iPads if you're going to be buried in it and you need an iPad for every song. Like, if you're still using an iPad for songs that you've had in your set for, I was going to say a year, even 6 months, like, come on.
Too dark to drop these on.
Get it together. But if you need cheater lyrics for a couple songs because you're adding them in, or you don't do them that often, like, okay, as you know, but I'll give you that. But you shouldn't have them on every gig and for every song. But I think I have the lyrics down, and what I usually do is I put it on repeat, and I listen, and then I have to take a day off to like let it settle into my brains, because I find that if I only ever listen, it doesn't stick, and I just get into this like thing where it just like I don't actually internalize it and I don't really hear it anymore, but then I have to listen to it again. And I also have to read the lyrics along with it, so that in my brain, when I'm singing the song, I can read the lyrics that I see in my head. That's how I do it. How do you do it?
I try to identify what parts of the song repeat. So, like, for example, I Just Might has 3 sections. It's got the verse, the pre-chorus, and the chorus. Pre-chorus and the chorus don't change, other than some of the vocal licks and stuff that Bruno's doing, which I'm not really that kind of singer, so I either learn it exactly how he does it, or I kind of just get in there and figure out what feels kind of authentic or repeatable for me. But once I've like figured out which sections repeat, the pre-chorus and the chorus, those usually stick in my head pretty quick. Then I try to get the melody first, and then identify the lyrics. And then once I'm like, okay, well, I only really have to, it happens 2 or 3 times in the song, but I only have to memorize it once because it's not changing. Then I can start to look at like the parts that are changing, like the verse, obviously. And again, luckily on the Bruno tune, there's only 2 lines in each verse, basically. So it's not so much that it becomes a challenge or difficult to memorize those. It's like making sure they're in the right order, which my brain always wants to put stuff in a different order. So like, you talk about using an iPad for cheater lyrics for songs you've done a million times. Like, I just got off an iPad for September, like last year. I still screw it up, but I just couldn't stand one more show of reading September off an iPad. Again, in my defense, September is like, there's the
It's-
lyrics change,
It's weird.
and there's no rhyme, there's no story being told, there's no real rhyme or reason to why. My brain, like, if there's a story or a sort of a flow to a song, my brain will order it correctly. It makes it much easier to learn. But a song like September, and there's a few others like that are just sort of, it just seems like random lines. And so then my brain goes like, well, what is this? What? Even if I start the line right, I'm like, is this the one that ends chasing the clouds away? Or is this the one that ends new love was here to stay? There's like only blue talking. Like, it's just, my brain just goes, can't see the lyrics in order. But also, some of that's a fear of, you know, not wanting to screw up a song that everybody does, right? It's
Right.
like every band does September because it's just a classic song, gets asked for on a lot of request lists. I'm like, well, I don't want to screw up September. Not like having to remember that like people screw up September all the time. And also, most of the crowd, they don't know the lyrics either.
They don't know
They
it.
know the chorus. And
They
so,
don't know it. As long as you body on,
Yeah.
you're good.
So
You're
for me, it's like I finally just went like, all right, I have to start to like, and I did. When you talk about the process, the way I started to get off book for September was I started to look for a pattern of how each phrase ends, and I did find a pattern because the first verse of September, it ends, those lines end the same way, and then the second verse of September, they end different ways. So if you know that there's only basically 3 endings to those lines, and you go like, okay, I know which one goes in the first verse, and I know which one's going in the second verse, then you can start to kind of like work backwards from that. Be like, all right, well.
That being said, you learn songs so fast, like especially when we're in like high wedding season and we're learning so many special dances. You always grab the guitar, and you always like really sing, gets it into you.
Yeah, I have a harder time. I have a much easier time memorizing songs even if I'm just doing rudimentary. I'm not a great guitar player, but I just look up the chords, or I figure the chords out, and I just sing through it that way. It gets into my brain so much faster than listening to the original song, trying to sing along with it. Because even if you are singing along with it, the original song, what you don't realize, and this would work too even if you built a karaoke track or found a karaoke track, when you're singing along with the original recording, you have that safety net of like, and you may not even realize how often you're doing it, of like, oh, I'm just like, they come in, they do a little thing, or they come in with the first word or the first little pickup or whatever that jogs your memory, like, all right, this is that.
Right.
Then when you go to sing it live, nobody's doing that because you're the singer. It's like, I have had so many of those moments where I'm like, oh shoot, like, I don't know it as well as I thought I did, versus when I sit down with a guitar or whatever, even if I'm playing it slow or even if I'm doing whatever, it's like it just gets it into my DNA.
I wonder if it's also you being identifying as a drummer first too, though, is that you're used to engaging your whole body.
Yeah.
Like, because if we had choreography, that would be different, because I would get the song down, because it's like, oh, this word is when I do this movement, or whatever. So I get that.
Well, that's
what helped me with Man-Child, funny enough, was Roxy was really excited that we were adding it, in that she knew the lyrics. So when I would like pick her up from school, hey mom, how you doing with Man-Child? Let's sing it. And so funny enough, it's that she would want to sing it with me without the song on, for that reason of like, let's see how good we know it without the song being on. And so she did that to me a couple times. So we'd be at the grocery store and she'd be like, Mom, first verse. And I was like, oh shoot, like she's it's like she was quizzing me, but it was also because she wanted to know if she knew it. And so it was like, it was forcing me to do it without hearing it.
Yeah, but it's funny though. It's funny though, because you are talking about Man-Child and you're like, oh, I actually have it down for these reasons or whatever.
I think
Man-Child is the kind of song that would give me trouble, because there's the only part that repeats is the chorus. Like, there's a verse, and then there's a little stupid or whatever. Like that part only happens once. Then there's the bridge. The first bridge is like or whatever, and then there's an outro that's another thing, and it's like my brain would be like, which one is this? What part is happening right now?
It's funny that you say that though, because it is a weird song, and that the first verse and that little second part of the first verse, then it goes into the chorus. Then the second verse isn't sung at all like the first verse, and then it goes into the chorus, and then it has the little outro thing, and so I was like, but to me it helps me section out what part is sung over which part. But we shall see. Shall see. I think I'm not even going to put the iPad there at all, so I don't get pulled to it, and it could totally blow up in my face. However, Cache Creek is kind of like, it's one of those gigs where it's on, like, it is on the track. It was like we 4 45-minute sets.
Yeah.
To the minute. You're being shown out into the casino by other screens, and they can hear you too. So you're being piped out.
It's the worst thing that could happen, because it's also on a delay. So
he always is looking at himself on the screen.
So there's a lot of shots of me looking up at an odd angle, because I can't help it. I'm like, when else do you get to, like, in real time go like, what did it look like when I did that thing? Like, and I cannot help myself.
He's so bad.
I know how it looks, and I've tried to stop, and I am unsuccessful. So it just is what it is.
Yeah, it's fine. What I was gonna say is, not to poo-poo. I don't mean to sound like I'm poo-pooing the gig, but it's like low risk in that, like, it's not like we have a huge crowd usually. The gig is what it is, and it's a nice gig to have. But to me, it's kind of like, yes, the whole casino is going to hear if I miss a line of Man-Child, but also it's kind of like, it's not like I'm going to have a whole crowd of faces staring up at me and looking at me while I do it. So this is kind of a good good gig to workshop new songs.
Well, I think part of the problem is, and you're talking about my ability to learn songs quickly. What sticks in my head is melodies. Melodies and song forms go into my head quickly. I think it's partly because of being a drummer, partly because of that process of, like, I've been over my career, I've like constantly learned, charted, and whatever, a lot of original music backing up artists. And then when I got into a cover band that was working a lot, I was constantly learning songs and having to figure out a way to, like, very quickly learn material. But I was also like, I was learning the drum part and the song form, and then I would only have these chunks where I'd be singing background vocals that I had to learn. Mm-hmm. But I also, like, I've written music, produced records, that kind of stuff. So my brain immediately is able to put things in a normal song form, and then, like, kind of highlight when there's an extra bar there, or it drops out here, like things that are not just normal going through the song or whatever. Lyrics are the thing that takes me a lot longer. And the reality is that when we do weddings or gigs where we're doing a song once, I don't worry about memorizing lyrics.
Yeah.
And I don't feel bad about that. And people can have their own opinions. And like I said, you go on Threads, you'll see a bunch of those opinions. But I don't care, because, quite frankly, I have so many songs in my brain and so many things to think about and worry about. And especially in the middle of wedding season, we might have 2-3 requests every week sometimes.
More.
And so
if we have 2, like a Friday and a Saturday wedding,
yeah,
then we're learning 6 songs.
Right. So for me, I'm like, that's not where I want to put I want to do a good job. I want to know how the song goes. I want to have, like, the nuances down, but I'm not, the hours that I would spend memorizing the lyrics to that song, that's not where I want to spend my time.
No.
But I have a hard time memorizing lyrics for songs we are going to do over and over again. And the reality is, it never really solidifies. It never really gets deep into your DNA until you go out and perform it 10 times.
Yeah.
And so there's gonna be, and again, like you said, we don't rehearse, but even if we did rehearse, like 1 rehearsal, 2 rehearsals is not gonna, like, nail that into my brain. Like, I have to go out and do it enough times where I'm like, because same process of, like, where I'm listening to a song as a drummer and putting it together and going like, oh, trouble spots or oh, unique spots. It starts happening to me as a singer. I go like, all right, I got these parts of the song down, like these parts are memorized, and then but I know I always have trouble with this thing. I always have trouble going into this one section or whatever. So then once I feel comfortable, I can start to really put my attention there and go like, okay, this gig, I'm not going to miss that thing. And then hopefully if I don't, then it's like, that's not a trouble spot anymore going forward.
Right.
In theory.
In
when
theory.
things go well. Yeah.
That being said, you're still one of my favorite travel partners on all this stuff. 10 out of 10. Wouldn't change a thing. I know that I probably stressed you out. I stressed him out because he will never say, you will never say that I'm stressing you out, I've noticed. But I lost my wireless earbuds, and I know that stressed you out to a certain extent. I know you were like an eye roll away from luckily they weren't like the most expensive pair of earbuds I've ever had, but I got on the second. I have a habit of putting one in and keeping one in the case, and in my desire to not travel with a lot of bags or anything, I put it in the front pouch of my hoodie, and it fell out somewhere, and luckily I got through a whole movie with one earbud in, but I was like, well, dang it, I have to replace that like ASAP because of all the travel we're doing. I do not want to be without earbuds because we watch so many.
That's a quality of life
movies.
thing that I'm not willing to go backwards on. You know?
I have complained that it's harder. You and I don't speak anymore on planes because it's so loud.
Yeah.
We used to I feel like we used to talk all the time. We definitely used to watch movies together more because we would do splitters. When you used to actually plug in your earphones. And I laughed at that one trip that we did, the one in Houston. You were like, okay, you actually have to watch F1. And I was like, man, I wanted to watch it together. Although I did watch one movie on the way back from Tucson that I was like, you definitely wouldn't have really enjoyed or liked. So I'm like, oh, I did get to have one of those. One of the things that we do all the time when we drive to gigs together, which has become a tradition that I'm already jonesing for on our way home, is most of this time is spent listening to podcasts. If we're not talking and debriefing a gig, we're listening to podcasts together, and I am very much a true crime junkie. I'm always listening to true crime. Kyle on his own will listen to sports podcasts. Although I did see that you were listening to a political.
I listen to a lot of political current event stuff, sports, some comedy, every once in a while music interviews. But
together though, it's 90% true crime, and then the other 10% is something music related or something like that. I think the last one we listened to was something with Huey Lewis that I never actually got to finish. But one of my favorite that we have really enjoyed together that I thought I would drop with is called Small Town Dicks.
And it's not about small people's small dicks in a small town or a small town or whatever.
Yeah, it is so good.
So that would be an interesting podcast, potentially for some people.
It is so good, and it's funny enough, the gal that voices Lisa
Simpson from The Simpsons.
Lisa Simpson is married to an ex-detective, and he's got a twin brother who is also a detective, and so they all interview
they also have the
detectives from other places.
Yeah, they also have the detective that helped catch the Golden State Killer, which was another podcast I listened to not way back, but a few years ago.
Right.
There's a number of podcasts, but I listened to a really, really good one that was, I didn't, some of those famous cases, I never have got deep into them, but that one was really interesting and really scary.
I just can't wait for our drive home from this gig, because we're going to listen. We haven't listened to a podcast together in a really long time. And I like to pause it a lot of times, go are you freaking kidding me right now? What would you do? Blah, 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 blah. And we do this whole debrief as we're listening to it. And I'm like, okay, play.
Yeah.
And like we do that all the time. I think we covered like more than I thought we were going to cover.
We sprawl.
We sprawl.
We expand. We sprawl.
But
Sorry,
we're going to be this actually keeps me from getting car sick, it feels like, too, because if I'm talking like this and I'm not on my phone. The other thing I do is I play a lot of Candy Crush. I do play a lot of Candy Crush when we're driving, even if we're listening to podcasts. I guess I really do have ADD.
Just a little.
But yeah, we're going to be traveling a lot, so I didn't know how well we would stick to a recording schedule for the podcast. We really do a lot of things in real time because we're not really disciplined at how we spend our time. And he was like, "You want to do this in the car? I don't know how good this is going to be." And I said, "Yeah, but are you going to want to do it from the room tomorrow? Are you going to want to do it on Sunday after teaching?" No. So I figured, and then we were like right back on a plane again on Monday. So we would be off by a whole nother week, and you guys would miss it. You guys would miss us.
Yep. I would miss us.
So anyway, that's we'll have to debrief this, and we got some really cool stuff that's coming up that I haven't been, we're not quite ready to announce yet, but stay tuned and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Toodles.
Toodles. Love you.
Love you too.
You said that you found me, but you know that it was I found